Hello and welcome back to the Computer Science of Dentistry channel. In the last video, we went over a tool that I developed and released that uses Mesh Mixer and a 3D face scan in order to produce a custom fit face mask. You can check out the earlier video to see all the details on that, generally speaking, how it works and everything that was going on at that time. Since then, it's been a couple weeks, and I've done two different updates to that software. It's called Mesh Mask, and again, it's available at d3tool.com. Just go to the shop, and it's free there. You can just find a download link there. And again, you can check out the prior video to see how to do that. But in this video, we're going to go over the newest version of the software and go over some of the new features and just do a demonstration. In fact, in this video, I'm going to be creating a mask for a buddy of mine that sent me a scan that lives in North Carolina. So I'm going to be doing this for real. I'm going to be printing it out, and there's a lot of things to take into consideration. So I'll go over each one of those things as we go. So the first thing is you have to download the software. It comes in a zip file. You unzip it, and then you can just double click on the software that is in this folder. It's called Mesh Mask, but I have a shortcut here to it. So I'm just going to double click that shortcut. Again, you need a program called Mesh Mixer installed as well. It's also free. I'll leave the download link in the description. So if you don't have it open, Mesh Mixer, my program will give you a little prompt here. It'll say, oops, it looks like it's not open, we can't find it. Go ahead and open it first and then try again. So you could do that. You could just open Mesh Mixer and hit try again. Or more conveniently, you can just hit this button that says Open MM. It stands for Mesh Mixer, so you can open Mesh Mixer. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and import that scan. He downloaded the Bellis 3D app on his phone, and it looks really, really good. I think he exported it for 99 cents, and you don't have to do any scaling. It's perfect as far as that goes. So it's a really good option if your phone has that app or has the capability to do that. I think it needs to be a newer phone with multiple cameras in order for that to happen. But either way, this is what he sent me, and it looks really good. So that's our input scan here. And we have the program running on the side. Before we get started, I'll show you one new addition from the prior versions, which is this part library. So I'll expand that, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different options. Each one of these things you can click on, and they will import into Mesh Mixer all the different parts and pieces that are associated with that particular filter or whatever the text says there. So for instance, the MUSC, which is I think Medical University of South Carolina, they've released their own 3D printable filter design. In fact, here's the PDF on it. Kind of goes over how to put it all together and how it works and why it works and everything like that. I've also included that in the zip file as well, so you can check that out. But when you're generating the mask, you only really need just the attachment. You don't need all the other parts to it. So if you click on this, it will import the other parts. So let's hide this guy. All the parts associated with the MUSC box filter. So there's 3 of them there. They all get imported, 1, 2, 3, and you can print those out as well. Same thing with, there was a request to add a 22 millimeter CPAP adapter. So we have male connectors. You can actually, let's just hide these or just get rid of them. If you click on the male connectors, it'll show you all the different male connectors that are included. Female, same. NanoHack, this was the original one that was in the first version of Mesh Mask, but it only had let's see. I think this is the original one right here. This came with this little honeycomb and it would screw into the mask. And I kind of got a little crazy with it, and I thought that wasn't enough. So, and I realized quickly that, hey, this is fully modular, adaptable. It's got screws on it, it's threaded, so you can really add anything you want to the opposite end of this threaded cap here, and it's modular. You can add anything you want. So these are all the ones I just quickly hacked out here. Other than the original, there's the original. There's a fully closed end cap, just in case you have multiple connections and you're not going to, maybe you thought you're going to use one, but you're not. You can close that off with this end cap. This one has a little cutout for the MUFC box adapter. That's just a regular 22 female. And that's basically it. And then at the end of when you're generating the tool and you go up here to add mask attachment, if you chose, let's just say the nano hack, it would import all of these automatically at the very end, just to show that these are all the things that you could use with the filter that you just chose to add to your mask. So these things can be, or actually are added automatically at the end of the tool, the mask attachment, but you can also just access them this way as well. And then at the end of when the tool is generated, you don't need all these, right? You're probably not going to use all these. These are kind of silly. You may not need those. You can delete those. And you may only need one of these. Get rid of that. And then these are the ones that you 3D print. So it just includes all of them, and you can delete the ones that you don't need, keep the ones that you do. And the last one, this is something I just made on my own. I saw there was a lot of talk about face shields and visors and things like that. A lot of them go around your head, and I think that's probably the more optimal solution. But I thought, why not give it a shot and at least include something that you can attach on the mask and kind of do it the reverse way. So the shield goes upwards from your mask versus downwards from your forehead or your head. So I'll show how that works a little bit later, but for now, that's what that does, and we'll just get rid of that. And we'll bring the scan back up and back to custom face mask. So this is the tool that will generate the custom face mask. Anything in this section here are all tools. So any one of these, if you click on it, it will generate some steps down here, and you just iterate through the steps by hitting go and then next, next, next. Any directions for that particular step will be shown right here in this box. So the first one we're doing is the custom face mask tool. And the first thing is if you want to make any modifications to the face just by sculpting, you can. It will give you like a little brush that you can modify the scan if you want. I haven't really came up with any reasons why I would do that personally right now, but someone may, and just because I can't really think of a reason or I may not use it doesn't mean I feel like I shouldn't have included it in here. So there may be a case someone may use it for something, so I just kept that step in. Most people won't, so you can just hit next. The next series of steps really is just a bunch of waiting here, but the reality is what it's doing is it's normalizing any of the inputs that it gets. So whether you took a scan with a Bellis, whether you took a scan with a really fancy 3D scanner, or just with photogrammetry, a different piece of software on your phone, who knows? Whatever you get, it will normalize that data into something that this program can then use consistently and generate a consistent output from. So now it says draw the mask border, and the tool that's automatically selected allows you to just left click and draw on the face directly. You can continue the line, and if you mess up, let's just say you came down here, you don't want to, you can actually come back here a little bit, re-click and drag, and it'll fix that. But in the prior video, I showed that you can come up here and change this to brush, and it gives you this kind of like little circular brush that you can actually paint onto the face as well. I feel like this is a little bit better suited for actually what we're going to be doing, so I like to do that, but you could do either one. The first thing is that I already did 3D print one of these masks. Actually, I think it was the one I did on the first video. Um, it was pretty big and pretty bulky, and it's fine. It worked great, actually. It fit nice, but it was a lot of material and it was a pretty long print. So for those reasons, it's not really that practical. What I learned right away is that these masks, if you're going to do it this way, they need to be as minimal as possible. So you don't use too much material, you don't use too much time, and you don't waste too much money doing these things. So that's kind of the whole point of using a 3D printer. Or, one of the big points or benefits of using a 3D printer is that you can generate these things fairly cheaply. So you want to keep it as small as possible. So what I like to do, or what I've kind of my workflow for this is only include at first what you absolutely need. So the things that I've determined you absolutely need are the nostrils here, this part of the nose, and the mouth here. So if I were to kind of just show you with my mouse, this area here, the mouth, and this here area here of the nose, those are the absolute critical, they need to be included, right? So we'll start with the mouth. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, this brush, this circle here a little bit bigger. You can come up here to the size and drag that up a little bit. Or you can hit the open bracket key or the close bracket key, either one, and it will grow and shrink that for you. So that's a little bit easier, and I like to do that. I'm going to make it about the size of the mouth, just a little bit bigger. Again, I'm just focusing on the mouth itself right now. That's too small, that's too small, too small, too small. Getting there, like almost right on, but we want a little bit of a buffer. Maybe that's like one buffer out. That will probably be good. I'm gonna do one more just to be safe. And kind of focus right on the mouth area. Click once. Come up to the nose. And get my circle a little bit bigger there. And just kind of get that first part of the nose that includes the nostrils, just that. The other parts that I feel like are important here are in order to maintain I feel like this may be good right here actually, but just to be safe, I feel like it's good to add a little bit underneath the chin and a little bit on the bridge of the nose here to get a little bit more maybe mechanical retention just on the face mask, so it's a little bit easier for it to stay on. So I'm going to do a little bit under the chin here as well. Not too much, just we don't want it on the jawbone, you know, necessarily like writing on the jawbone. So maybe the border is just a little bit underneath that. That might even be too much, but that's fine. And then we'll come up to the bridge of the nose, and this is dependent on who this is for. This specifically for me is going to be for a dentist, and I know he has loupes on or glasses, so I can't have this right up too high because then he couldn't wear his loupes. Or you could, I guess, make an attachment for the mask that has your loupes, built in somehow. But just using that as a consideration, I'm not going to bring this up that far. So let's see, I'm going to shrink that down. And actually, if you look at it from the side, I think that's a little bit better of a way to judge things. Because your glasses will typically rest, maybe from like right in the middle here, in this area. So I would say you want the mask to go in between maybe the midpoint here and the tip of the nose. Somewhere in between there. So maybe right there. The next thing is that you need to make sure that the outer side of the nostril is also selected. Um, you want to make sure everything around the kind of a little buffer around the nostril as well. When you exhale, your nostril flares out a little bit and it needs a little bit of room, just a little bit of room to move around. So you need to make sure that's the full border of that selected and included with a little bit of a buffer. Okay, now that we have the essentials selected, we can kind of modify this a little bit. The first thing that I kind of saw is that this area here is kind of a crease in the face, and it's going to be moving around a little bit when you talk and when you move. And so I need to make sure that a little bit of a border outside of that is selected as well. That looks good on this side actually. And on this side, that actually looks pretty good too. Maybe just a touch there. That looks good. Mouth looks good. Nostrils look good. Bridge of the nose looks good. I don't think I need this extra bit out here. Again, we're trying to minimize. So this is actually pretty important for each little bit that I'm removing here. It's saving me quite a bit of material in the end print. Buffer of the nostril, but minimizing a little bit of material. And then do I really need, this part? Okay, it's looking efficient. And then we come over here to our parameters. The total thickness of the mask, the end mask to be printed. I have the default value at 2.5 millimeters. I think that's a pretty solid thickness. Depending on what you're using, you can change that. I'm going to keep it at 2.5. Distance from face, the default value I did have at 20 millimeters. But like I said, when I printed my first one out, it was pretty bulky, pretty big, took quite a long time. And it was, it's pretty sufficient room in there. So 20 millimeters was a lot. I think 15 is a good spot to be at. I think you can even go less. Again, we're trying to just minimize as much as we can as far as material goes. And for each, millimeter, 2-3 millimeters extra that you add to the length of this thing, it's that much more material. So you kind of want that perfect balance of you need enough room within the mask, but not too much material to be printed, or the mask may be too big to even print on your 3D printer as well. So 12.5, I'm going to give that a shot, I think. I think that's good. 12.5, 15, anywhere in there, I think is a good distance. This looks good, and I'm just going to hit next. This is a new step that I've added in this most recent release of the software. You are now able to add a gasket that goes around the border of the mask that either can be fused to the mask, so it's all one piece, you 3D print it just like that, or you can make it removable in a separate 3D print. And I did that just in case. And what I'm thinking as well is that what I'm personally going to do is that I'm going to use a flexible or softer material for that print and then attach it to the mask that was printed in a more solid material. So that's why I did that. So you can have it either fused if you want, or you can check an option later on that says to make it removable, and it will be a separate 3D print with an offset that's a good tolerance for kind of snap fit parts for 3D printing. So we are going to include that gasket. We're going to check that box. We can make it whatever diameter we want. I haven't printed one of these out yet, so I'm not quite sure, but I'm going to do 6. I think that's a fair value. It looks good kind of aesthetically in the software when it's done. I think anywhere probably between maybe 5 and 10 would probably be a good value there, but I'm going to do 6. Hit next. Forms the gasket right away. And then it just goes through the remaining steps that were in the original software here. So this step says, and I'm actually going to pay a little bit more attention to this step. Um, it's a lot of text here, but the reality is all it's asking you to do is select any other area other than this purple border that you want to be flush with the face. Um, so for me, uh, like I said, this is going to be for a dentist. We already made enough room on the bridge of his nose for his loupes or glasses, but at the same time, this part of the mask will extrude upwards 12.5 millimeters. And if you did 15 or 20, that's quite the distance there. And if you're looking down at a patient, that may hinder your ability to see things properly. So I'm actually want to try to reduce that a little bit, and I don't want that to extrude out and have that same 12.5 offset. I want it flush against the bridge of his nose. But I can still see the nostrils here, the outline of the nostrils. But what I do not want to do is include the nostrils in this, because like I said, that would mean it would be flush against the nostril with limited room to expand when you exhale and things like that. So I can still kind of make out where the nostril border is. So I'm just going to go right around that. And this helps with material, and it helps with vision as well. So I don't have to do any of this purple part because it's automatically selected. Just anything in the green. And if it spills into the purple, it's fine. But let's make that a bit more symmetrical. Okay, that looks good. That part is going to be included. We're going to hit next. Again, I'm not clicking on anything or doing anything. It's just doing all these steps automatically. Just taking that shell that we had and then making it the distance away from the face that you specified, and then creating the thickness that you indicated as well, with a little bit of smoothing and things like that. Just a little, not much, just a little bit to kind of round the edges off, because I didn't want to alter the geometry too much, because I wanted it to be a custom fit thing. So too much smoothing can make it, you can lose the original like accuracy. Okay, so this is another new step, but that involves the gasket feature. It just simply asks, would you like it fused or would you like it removable? Like I talked about earlier. In our case, like I said, I'm planning on printing this in a softer, flexible material, so I'm going to make it removable. Next. What it's doing now is it's taking the mask that we've already generated and making an offset of that at 0.5 millimeters, and then doing a Boolean difference or subtracting it against that gasket. The reason I did 0.5 millimeters is because that's a fairly well documented tolerance for snap fit parts in 3D printing. As you can see here, I'll try to zoom in a little bit. If you look all around, you can see there's a little gap. It's easier to see if I just bring this down. And if this was in a flexible material, that should be fairly easy just to snap right on. Or you could just plane cut this literally in half, print two separate pieces, and add it to the mask in two pieces, which I think would be just maybe easier or just as easy. So that's the removable gasket. If it were fused, it would look just it would just look like this, exactly the same, except you couldn't remove it or change its location from the mask. So now we have the gasket removable plus, ooh, looks like we have those little red dots indicate that there may be a hole or error in the file or in the mesh. So I see that. I'm going to hit I. It does inspector here, auto repair all. That fixes that. I've never had that happen actually, so that's interesting. But if you do notice that, you can just hit the I on the keyboard, letter I, brings up inspector, auto repair all, done. Either way, we have our mask, we have our gasket, and we're going to move on to the next step here. We had at first one style of hook. Now we have two different styles, so I'm going to use the second style for this one. I'm also going to bring the face up here, just for reference. Because these hooks and tabs are going to be where you can put elastic bands that will attach to your ear or the back of your head. For him, I'm suggesting it goes around his ear. So I'm going to try to angle these so they go towards the upper part and the lower part of his ear. And so let's put one at the top of the mask here, maybe right here, and then add hook. I'm going to hit optimize here. You don't have to. The difference there is that it sticks it out a little bit, which is fine. If it's optimized, it's more flush. For me, I want this one a little bit more flush. And I want to rotate this so it's kind of headed towards, let's see, if I drew like a line out, kind of goes towards the top of his ear. Maybe even inwards a little bit. Make this a little bit bigger. And that's looking pretty good there. Out of the way. I'm going to remember this size here because I'm going to add 3 more. I want them all to be the same size, so I'm just Control-C copy. Or just remember that number. Accept. I hit S to open the select tool again, or you can just click here. Same thing over here. Paste it to get the size, optimize, and then I just need to angle it at the ear. Kind of get it more on that flat part there. S, and I'll try to put one down at the bottom here, like right there. This one's a little bit trickier to visualize, but I kind of want to just aimed right at the bottom of his ear. Looks pretty good. Is it really that obtrusive? A little bit. I'm going to bring it down more. kind of in this area. And then check that angle again. I think I need to bring it down just a little bit. Okay, that one looks good, accept. Last one. Paste that size, optimize it so it's all the same. I think I'm just gonna see if I can just line it up based on the other one and then check it. That looks good. We'll do that inspector trick again. So everything looks good, but I'll do auto repair anyway. It looks good. Okay, so we have the mask with the 4 elastic attachments, or attachments for the elastic bands. I'm actually going to hide the face for this next part, where we add our mask attachments. So you got to make sure that you have your mask selected for this tool, which it says right here, then press go. It starts by making a copy of the original mask, actually, if you notice down here. So if you do make any mistakes in this part, or something fails, or something goes wrong, you can just start over because the original one's right here. So what we want, or for my friend here, I think I want to do the MUSC. I want to do 1 port for that, so I'm going to do an MUSC. I could do a bent elbow. I think that's a little bulky for me right now, so I'm just going to do the straight piece. And some other options are right here, this bent elbow check mark. It only applies for these 3 options. We'll get to the custom later, but MUSC for now, and next. Now it's asking us to select where we want this attachment to be placed. Again, I'm taking things into consideration like line of sight. He's going to be looking down into a patient's mouth. I can't have this big box attachment right in the middle of his face. You couldn't see anything, so it needs to be out of the way. Preferably off to the side or down at the bottom. Maybe not down at the bottom. That might get in the way because he's going to be leaning his head down. So probably off to the side makes the most sense. So I'll say, try to make it let's see. That looks good. And if I'm going to make a second one, I'll just try to, well, no. So all we need to do is just click one spot where we want this attachment to be. Next. Creates the perforation for us, adds the attachment to the location. For the MUSC file, you need to make sure that this little cutout, this window, is facing upwards towards, towards the nose, towards the head, that region, because it has a valve on it and it needs to be facing upwards. So we'll do that. I'm going to have to adjust this a little bit too, but let's just do the rotation for now. If I was looking at it from like his point of view, yep, that looks good. But then we need to adjust its depth, because I saw that there was a little hole right here. We can't have that. So this needs to be adjusted down a little bit. And that looks like a lot protruding in here, but I think it's just because of where I selected right on this side of the mask, but that's where I want it, and I think I'm okay with that right there. And we're going to say next. And we'll fuse this part to the mask. It's always good to double check all the way around the perimeter of this attachment just to make sure there's no gaps. Looks good. And then you'll notice that the parts for that particular attachment, the MUSE files, they were automatically added at the end of that tool, so you can have those ready to 3D print. That'll go off to one side here. I think on the other side, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put not this, actually, I will. I'm going to do the same exact adapter, and I'll show you why towards the end of this video, mainly because there's a new type of filter that I haven't integrated in the software that's based on a Roomba HEPA filter cartridge system. And there's an attachment that fits this exact port here, this exact one. So the Roomba part fits this perfectly, so there's no need to integrate anything. It's the exact same. So that's wonderful that whoever did that did it this way. And I think anybody developing parts like this now and in the immediate future should really take that into consideration. Makes things more universal and more adaptable. So I love what that person did. And for that reason, I'm going to put exactly one more of these on this side. And the thought is, if the reason you might need two is that you may need more, just one may not give you enough airflow. So having two would give you sufficient airflow. If it turns out that one's fine, you can always just plug this one up. That's my thought process. So it never really hurts to include a second port because you can always just plug it up. So I'm going to do that on this side at the exact opposite. And we're going to add another attachment. Just click on that same tool again. We have our mask that we want. We're going to go. Same thing. Then it asks us where we want it, and we'll see if we can do it. Approximately in the same location as the other side, out of the way, non-intrusive, hopefully. Okay, we've got to make sure that cutout is facing upwards. That looks good. And that depth of how far that's coming in looks fine as well. So I'm just going to keep that like that and hit next. Okay, so that is basically our final mask with it has the two, it imported two different sets, one for each one that you created. So for each port that you add through the tool, add a set of these as well. However, like I said, maybe there's something that's not integrated within the software that comes out that's new that you want to be able to attach this mask, for instance, that Roomba filter. So like I said, the reality is actually it comes with a 22 male port that fits perfectly in here. It even has the tab that lines up exactly right as well. So you don't even really need to do anything except just do that. However, let's just pretend as if that was not the case, and you did just want to directly add it to the mask. You want to create your own attachment. So if someone comes up with a brand new something and you want to add it to the mask. So let's go through that workflow, and that's what this new tool up here, Custom Mask Attachment, does. So this is our mask that we have, the final version. Looks good to me. I will say that one is sticking out a little bit further, but I think that's irrelevant for right now. Um, we want to make that new attachment. So um, the easiest way to do it, at least for me, what I did this morning, is I hopped on the internet. I went to Thingiverse. I typed in Roomba mask filter. For some reason, this site is unbelievably slow for how big and popular of a website it is. And it's not just like, oh, right now it's bogged. It's literally every time I've used it. There we go. So the first ones that come up are exactly what I'm looking for. This is one that I was using, or that I'm going to be using in this video. Actually, just to shout this guy out, if you click on his profile here, Wally Ren, I believe. I think Ren is, I don't know. I don't think it's Renee. I think it's Ren. But either way, this guy, um, kudos and props to him. He's come out with an amazing set of files here. So check this guy out. And the best way to do it, I feel like, so like I said, there was that one, you could just click on it and easily get to this file I'm about to do quickly. But I noticed that he released a few different ones, and one is newer than the other. This is the older one, actually. So if you click on his profile, which I'm not going to wait for that, it's already here, come up to designs, it'll show all of the things that he's put on Thingiverse. And one of them is newer than the other. Just click on the newer one if you want to use that one. They look the same to me. I'm not sure what's different, but either way, check this guy out. Make sure yeah, that you leave a like and all that good stuff on his parts, because it's really cool what he's done. It's taken forever. I don't know why. Oh, here are his parts that he did. Like I said, this is the one that I used, March 24th. For whatever reason, this one's newer, March 26th. So you can use whichever one you want. Make sure you like it. And yeah, that's it. You can't. I've already tried to tip him. And we can't. It says we're sure he would love a tip, but they don't have it set up, so we're going to notify. Say, hey, dude, come on. Everybody else should do that too, because it's really cool what he did. It just comes with a lot of different files in this one zip, and I'll show you that. I've actually included it in the software as well. All the attributes and everything like that are included as well. It's just a straight copy of the zip file. So in that, come back to the desktop and go into the parts folder. COVID-19 HEPA mask filter. That's the one that I downloaded from Thingiverse. I'm going to unzip that. Go to the files. And what we're looking for here is, since I've already looked through these, I know, it's these two, the Roomba 700 and the i7 mask filter cartridge bodies. So those are the two that we're looking for. And we want to make a custom attachment. So we're going to hit on custom, hit the tool that says custom mask attachment. And then it says load your attachment right now. We can either just load it in traditionally, we can drag and drop, or you can just click load file. Let's see, we're going to navigate to where we were, files, and let's do I'm not sure which one is more popular, which ones are people using, but they look about the same, so I'm just going to do that one right there, 700. There we have it. It's loaded in. And as long as it's active, we can hit go. It's going to hide everything else that's shown. in the scene, and then kind of give you this target and ask you to align your part to the target as if this was the exterior outer surface of the mask. So align your part as if that was true. So we want this part facing downwards. Try to put it on that X. And that looks good. That's how we want it. And we can center our part as well. We'll do that. And the reason it looks off center now actually is because it uses a mathematical average of the size of the part. So it's not symmetrical. On this outer side, there's these tabs here. So the center of the part is actually slightly offset, which is why it gives us that. So I'm actually just going to manual align that. I don't think it matters either way, to be quite honest with you. But that's good. Hit next. Do we need a perforation or not? For this one, we do. Next. And again, this is again kind of a seemingly unimportant part, or the steps that are going on right now. But again, this is actually very important because all the different things that you can download on the internet, all the different 3D files, they all come in different mesh sizes and regularities and things like that. And in order for all these tools to work properly, it needs to be an exact or close to an exact mesh density and triangle count and all these different things. So when you download all these parts from the internet, they're not that way. And so what this is doing right now is, again, just like with the scans, the 3D face scans, it normalizes everything to a certain mesh density, and then and that allows it to then work with the tools that I already have in the software. So even though it seems like it's taking some time here, and if you know what these tools are and you're looking at them, and you're like, why is that going on right now? That's why it just ensures that, or it gives a much higher rate of success of the tools working by doing it this way. Some other things that are going on is it's generating a Boolean object that will be used to create the perforation in the mask. That's what that little kind of shell is there. Automatically generates all this. I'm just sitting here. The tool is finished. You can hit the export button and we'll export these to any location you want, but it automatically exports it to your custom part folder in the software, so you don't have to worry about anything. You don't even have to click this button, but if you wanted to save it in a separate location as well, you could do that. For us, for now, we don't need either of these. We're done with them. They're saved in the proper location. We're going to come back to our mask. And now we're going to add another mask attachment, but this time we're going to choose our own custom part that we just generated. We're going to come down to Import Custom. I'm going to pick my file. It should default automatically to the correct directory, so you shouldn't need to look for anything at all. It's just right here. You can just hit Open. One thing actually I should mention is that it will generate the two different objects. If you're doing a perforation, it will only generate the one if you're not doing a perforation. And the one you need to select is actually the non-Boolean one. So this guy, not the Boolean, but this guy. And it's, like I said, it's already pre-written here. So all you need to do is just click Open and it will work. But just as a heads up, and then you can hit Next. Same thing as before, we need to set the location. We'll just say right here. I was just thinking to myself that why am I doing this to this mask? Because I'm actually going to be printing and using this, and I don't want this here. But the good thing is, like I said earlier, this made a copy of the input mask. So whatever happens here, I'm just going to delete it. This is mainly just to show you. But again, it's asking us to just select somewhere that we want this attachment. We're going to say right there in the middle is fine. Hit next. It imports the two parts that we made, does the Boolean difference, creates the perforation, just like in the other tools. And then it tells us, just like before, to get this in its best location here. So I'm going to check all the important things, like is there a seal all the way around? There's not right here. And you're really only going to see that mainly with custom parts. Anything that's integrated, all of these things should match up fairly flawlessly. It should just be a matter of just changing the depth if you need to at all. Even that should be taken care of automatically, but if you did, like on this guy over here, we did it at kind of a weird angle, so a little bit of it stuck out on the side here, so I had to bring it down further, but generally speaking, it will automatically work with the parts that are integrated. But for custom parts, if they're non-symmetrical, if they're a little bit off-center, unfortunately, you may have to just slightly adjust that just a little bit. And I'm going to look on the underside actually to see what this looks like. Again, I see a gap over here, so I want to make sure I get that. Taken care of. I'm going to bring this down a little bit further. So what I'm doing here is you can get it centered right in the middle, but in my experience, what I've noticed is that that may fail with the Boolean addition here, the union. So for me, in my experience, just getting this left part right here, this edge of the hole, let's see if you can see that, the perforation, this edge right here. If I can get that edge in the middle of this, see the edge, and now I don't, and I move it a little bit more, it's approximately right in the middle here. Even though there's a large overlap on this side, I know that it's a nice, solid mathematical Boolean. If it were right in the middle, like this, I think the reason it fails is because there's a lot of areas that are just almost overlapping exactly the same, and it's just a challenge for the software to do that. So you just want a clean cut or a clean addition. So again, I'm just going to move that over. Again, check the borders to make sure all the seals are good. That looks good. We need to also make sure the rotation is right. And I think this one's actually good. This one doesn't have a valve on it. It doesn't look like. I haven't really experimented with this. I'm not quite sure. But assuming that needs to face upwards, that looks good. You could rotate it a little bit. If you did rotate, you would have to change the X and Y direction as well a little bit, as you can tell there. But I think this looks good. Right here, depth looks good. And let's hit next. If we get an error, I'll show you how to fix that too. Looks like we might be getting one actually. Nope, looks good. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. That's a tell that you might be headed to trouble. And if it does fail, it's okay. You just need to adjust the part a little bit and retry the Boolean union again, and it should work. There you have it, custom part. Never, it's not integrated in the software by any means, just something I downloaded right off the internet. And there we have it attached directly to the mask. That's cool. So it's kind of like, in a way, future-proof, because what was starting to happen is, I get all these different things going, and I'm like, well, I'm doing the same thing over and over again, integrating these parts. I'm just going to take the generic way that I'm doing this and just automate it. And so it's almost as good as having it integrated. Couple little things are off, and that's only if your part is a little bit asymmetrical. But again, easy to fix, and that looks good. So there you have that. But this isn't the one that I want to use. This is the guy. And the last thing I want to show you is how this reverse face shield works. So I'm going to bring up his face again, and I'm going to import this face shield mask attachment. It's kind of under his head. Click on it. And if I press the T button, it opens the transform tool, or I can go to edit, transform. I'm just going to bring this up into view and a little bit onto the mask. So I'm just going to kind of get it centered first. And these little protrusions right here, here, and here are where you would attach the bottom portion of the face shield to, just little holes that, and this would snap onto. These need to be far enough out where it goes further than the distance of the width of his eyes. And that looks like it's just beyond, which is perfect. I want this to be directly attached to the mask. So I'm going to kind of bring it in like that. The next consideration here is to get the angle of this right. So if you had this facing up like that, the face shield would just be going straight this way. And looking at his eyes and knowing that he's going to have loops or glasses on, I think I'm going to need this out a little bit further. And then as far as I can, I guess. And maybe I can even bring this up a little bit further like that. So again, that kind of still looks like, well, that might be good actually. And checking the width again, I'm going to bring that over just slightly. Okay. And this is how you can manually add something to a mask. But before I do that, I want to check the underside. So I'm going to get rid of his face. I'm going to hide it. Come back to here and look at the underside. Oh, that looks fine. Okay. So if we want to add these two things together, you click on one. Either one, you can click on this one first or this one first. Once that's clicked, you hold Shift down on the keyboard and you click the other one. You can see these got selected down here. You can do that same thing as well, except you press Control if you're doing it through the object browser. Now I have them both selected here this way, but I think it's just intuitively easier just to click on the object, hold Shift, and click on the other object. Once you've done that, Boolean Union, accept, and that will be it. That will be the final mask for my buddy in North Carolina. And once I print this out and deliver it to him, I'll have him send some pictures and have him give me some honest feedback on how it all worked. In fact, I think I'm going to make one with this face shield attachment and one without, because it may be cumbersome if he doesn't need it at all, which he may not, because it's kind of just sticking up into the air there. So it's good for people that that's not a requirement. If they're just looking straight on at people, this would be perfect. In his unique situation, I'm going to do one with and one without, and he can let me know if it was in the way or not. And but yeah, bring up the face again. And that is the one. Oh, let's get the gasket as well. And yeah, like I said, these will be two separately 3D printed parts. This one first. And then this one on with a separate material. That's like a flexible. Okay, so that about does it for the most recent version of MeshMask, and it's 1.2. Basically, at this point, like I said on some of the different posts on Facebook, um, this is a very flexible tool at this point. It's at the point where no matter what parts that come out, you can add them doing this custom mask attachment workflow. And if you even know just a little bit about what you're doing in MeshMixer, you could do all these things manually anyway. But this allows for another subset of people to be able to do those things without knowing exactly what's going on in MeshMixer. So that's cool. You can add any future parts that come out or any existing parts that are there currently. There's several that are integrated within, but that's that. Hope you enjoy it. I hope people have actually been using this tool, and I would love to hear some feedback if you have printed one of these out and used it yourself. What thicknesses, what offsets from the face work best? Have you noticed? One port, two ports. What I've been hearing is two ports is the best solution. But yeah, I really hope that this is helping. And again, um, I hope that this pandemic will come to an end soon. We have some incredibly smart people, and I know they're making good headway in coming up with a solution to get us out of this. So, again, everyone have a wonderful day. I hope you're doing well, and I hope you're safe. Take care. I'll talk to you later.